We are recording this fresh off the back of QPR's victory at Loftus Road. Justin, a quick look at what SBK was saying on this game beforehand. A QPR win was 7-5. The Luton win was 9-4. A draw was 9-4. So interesting looking at that, considering Luton's away form has been shocking this season. QPR look like pretty good value, if you ask me. But let's dive straight into the game, Justin. What were your initial takeaways off the back of that?
I thought the first 25 minutes were probably one of the most exciting live games I've watched. It was just end to end and a bit chaotic. It was brilliant to watch. And then QPR almost sort of took control a little bit. And Luton scored against a run of play going in towards half time. I thought QPR really, really impressed me. I thought there were positives to take from Luton, but if you're taking into account the fact they lost another game, performances, I keep saying about Luton, performances don't matter now, results do. They're in a position where they need to get results, whatever the case. And QPR have been in that position because they were bottom of the table in November. But going for, into the game context side of things, but I say positives to take from Luton because they tested QPR, but is that enough at this point? No, they need to be getting points on the board. And didn't impress me too much, but QPR, I tell you what, QPR, they really, really did. I was, coming away from the final whistle thinking, okay, there's a lot to really like about this QPR team now. They were so good, created so many chances and so many youngsters getting opportunities as well. Yeah, not much to dislike about that QPR performance.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you've said there, Justin. I thought it was a strange game in a way because QPR probably will be looking at that thinking we could have probably won that by more, whereas Luton, I actually thought they did all right in this game. Considering their way form this season, I thought they played a lot better here, but just couldn't get the result, which is just... I completely accept what you were saying, Justin, about how Luton, it doesn't matter how they play at this stage, they just need to get results, and that still avoided them. But I thought this was better, but how that is that going to satisfy the Luton fans who continue to be disillusioned with their club? Probably not. But yeah, let's talk about some of the moments from the game. Jimmy Dunn missed an absolute sitter in the first half after an unbelievable save from Thomas Kaminski. That was a brilliant save. Want it from him, where he tipped it onto the bar. And shortly after that, Michael Frey made up for Jimmy Dunn's miss by scoring the opening goal. Was a hint of handball, Justin? I thought it would have been a bit harsh.
It's one of them where you break it down to the law, the very confusing law, which I say about all handballs now. And what I will say is it comes down to what the referee sees on the day. The very confusing handball law that we have now, it's about intent. It's about whether or not he's gained a goal scoring opportunity with the handball. It's just complete bollocks. It did touch his arm. And if you're going back to old school methods, yes, it was handball. Yes, it should have been pulled up. But at the same time, it was quite a subtle one, so don't really blame the officials for not seeing it. VAR probably rules it out, but alas, we do not have the technology. But no, to be fair to Michael Frey, I thought he took the chance well, and he walked away when he scored as well, which I found confusing. And then he sprinted.
Yeah, I thought he may have thought he fouled Raul Walters, who he went up for the header there, and that's why he didn't celebrate very much initially. But yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said there about the handball rule, Justin. I think it sums it up pretty well that the commentators didn't seem to really notice any shout for a handball until about the third showing of the same replay.
It also took him 10 minutes worth of discussion and half-time discussion with the pundits to realise, and then you had the rules down the side to realise that actually by laws of the game it was handball. And that's what we're up against here on a football pitch. 10 minutes worth of discussion to get to the conclusion of it. It's just a piss take. Handball's handball. Yeah.
If no one had noticed it in the first place and no one had really complained about it, I don't think we can really make a claim for handball there. But great finish by Michael Frey. A brilliant header by Mark McGuinness for Luton's equaliser. As far as glancing headers go, that was beautiful. Soared through the air like a salmon, Justin Peach. And so it was a good time for Luton scored just before half time. And then the second half I thought was a really entertaining one. As I say, Luton gave a good go of it. QPR, as the game wore on, were probably should have killed the game off, but they got there in the end. Paul Smith with a horrible cut was one thing
boxer's
I
cut.
noticed. That was a really nasty one. Wasn't
right
it?
in his
Blood
eye.
pouring down his face after a challenge by Amari Bell, I think it was. But the winner came from the foot of Morgan Fox. What a finish! Justin, Elias Chair shoots. Fox tries to move out the way. And it goes past Thomas Kaminski, who's lying there on the ground. And when things aren't going your way, Justin, things like that really sums up your luck, doesn't it? And Rob Edwards looking up to the sky in complete and utter disbelief really shows how he must be thinking, why is this happening?
It's very poetic, that little cut from the cameras to Rob Edwards just looking up at the sky with the sound of jubilation around him. I think the worst thing about this Morgan Fox goal is Elias Chair is going to register an assist for it.
It's a great point. You say that, Morgan Fox is going to have a goal registered to it, and he knew absolutely nothing about it.
As a defender, you take any goal that comes, right? You don't care how they come. And it's one of those, I mean, if QPR had scored that 2 months ago in the midst of their relegation battle, in inverted commas, it's the cliche, isn't it? You take any goal, even if it comes off someone's arse. Okay, it didn't quite come off Morgan's arse, but it pretty much did. The look sometimes got to go your way. And, I can't remember who was giving an interview. I think it was Morgan Fox actually giving an interview after the game saying, sometimes you've got to make your own luck. And that is literally the definition of making your own luck, shooting at a goal and deflecting off your own player for it to wrong foot the opposition goalkeeper. That is the definition of making your own luck.
Yeah, and the state of Luton Town was summed up pretty well by a long moment of confusion 5 minutes before full time, where they were trying to make 3 substitutes, and everyone got very confused about who was coming off. So you had loads of people on the Luton bench shouting at each other, trying to figure out what exactly they're trying to do. But of course, they're trying to do it in a hurry as well because they're up against the clock. Just an utter shambles from start to finish.
I think what you really need to, I mean, we can laugh here, but as a Luton, if I'm involved in Luton in any way, whether supporting them or working for them, or I have an affection towards Luton, I'm looking at that and I'm livid because that sums Luton up perfectly. The disorganisation, the complete lack of awareness of surroundings, the lack of clear instruction. Rob Edwards is apoplectic on the sideline. And I think what made it worse was this, the QPR fans singing, "You're getting sacked in the morning." That's what bellowed around Loftus Road as that moment of chaos and confusion and just dreadful organisation was kicking off. It was, again, just a beautiful moment, a really subtle moment, but a wonderful one.
Yeah, it's one of those where you just think, this wouldn't happen if things were going well for you. And you've had the Morgan Fox thing, the triple substitution. It really sums up Luton Town right now, doesn't it? But Justin, I wanted to give a special mention for the guy who was actually given Sky's man of the match for this game. It's young Kieran Morgan. He's an 18-year-old midfielder who joined in the summer after being released by Spurs. Now, it's interesting because QPR initially signed him for their development squad. So it wasn't like he was brought in with an expectation to feature much for the Rangers first team this season. But in recent weeks, he has been playing a starring role ever since their kind of turnaround in fortunes, really. He put the ball in for Michael Frey to score QPR's first and just looks a thrilling young talent, doesn't he, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, he makes really clever movements forward. He's a good battler defensively as well. If you're going to coin him with a phrase for a midfielder, he's all action. He really loves to get around the pitch. And I saw the touch map that Sky put on of him. And, he literally was everywhere on the pitch in this one. And you need players like that, especially when you do lack quality. I think that's fair to say to QPR, they don't have the quality that other sides boast. So you need athletes, you need willing runners, you need someone who's just going to be enthusiastic about playing football. And Kieran Morgan, I think, pretty much brings that into that team. It's important to have. He's a good battler. He can be more aggressive, but he's still making that transition into senior football, and he's really taking his chance for QPR. I think their injury crisis and selection crisis that they've had at various points has given youngsters an opportunity, because I thought Alfie Lloyd came on and was brilliant. That's another player who deserves a mention. He had 2 great chances in this game. It was unfortunate not to score both of them. Kieran Morgan, I think, just epitomises the change in direction at QPR. Focusing on those young players and developing them. It's simple as that.
Yeah, I've been very, very impressed with him recently. For someone who's just 18 as well, it's really, really impressive. So he looks like quite the get for QPR, and considering how good he is despite being so young, it makes me wonder why Tottenham let him go. Because, I mean, it's QPR's benefit that they've managed to have him now, and it seems like it's turned out to be a real coup for them. Good to see Ronnie Edwards make his QPR debut. That was a signing which we haven't really spoken about yet. Justin, he came in early on in the January window. Looks like a really exciting signing for QPR after Southampton paid a fair bit of money for him. For Luton, it was interesting how they set up tactically for this one, Justin, because they went with a 4 at the back. Now, that's something that Luton fans have been calling for this season after, usually going for 3 at the back. But they decided to divert away from it here. Interesting to see whether that's going to be something Rob Edwards goes with going forwards, but considering the injuries to personnel, it may be something that they do. And also interesting to see Lamina Fan play in this one. Now, for anyone who hasn't any awareness of who he is, Luton paid £4 million, I think it was, in the summer to get him, and he was instantly sent on loan back to Sweden, which raised a few eyebrows in the Luton fraternity. But he played here, and I thought he's one of Luton's stand-up players in this one just now. I don't know if he caught your eye.
Probably not as much as Zach Nelson did. I thought Zach Nelson was probably the standout for me. But I think it points to not a peculiar situation with Luton, but there might have been an agreement in that deal that sent him back to Sweden. At the same time, it might have been a case of he wasn't quite ready for the rigours of Championship football. Now, in Luton's desperate situation, he might still not be ready for the rigours of Championship football, but they need quality in that final third, especially if you're going to play 4 at the back. You need to get the midfield balance right, and if you're missing out on that quality in the final third, it really does tell when you're playing a 4 at the back. You look at Tahith Chong in this game. I don't think he had much of an impact. He was farmed out wide. Do think he benefits playing in central areas. So again, that's something that Rob Edwards needs to look at. But if you're going to take positives away from the performance, Zach Nelson, Fan, Cotton Morris, they're all very active and very promising, but it's not enough to win the game.
Yeah, it's interesting because Lamina Fan is meant to be a defensive midfielder, but he seemed to be playing very high up with the pitch in this one. So I'm excited to see more of him, considering they spent so much money on him, and also because Luton probably needs someone like him. Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll talk about QPR's ridiculous rise up the table and whether they could have a little peek at the top 6 as the time goes on. And, I mean, it's the same question we ask with every week with Luton Town. How long has Rob Edwards got left? Welcome back to the Second Tier Podcast. This is us reacting to QPR's win against Luton at Loftus Road, fresh off the back of that particular game. But QPR's rise up the table, Justin, is absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? It's just 1 loss in 11 for QPR, 5 wins at home on the bounce. The crazy thing is, they were bottom of the table in the last international break in mid-November, but since then, only Burnley and Leeds have won more points than them, which is astounding, isn't it? And it's interesting looking at what our friends at SBK are saying, Justin, because they have QPR, well, they had QPR just before this game, as 20-1 to finish in the top 6. And with their form, Justin, would you say it's a possibility?
Ooh, yeah. I think with Marty Cifuentes as manager, you can't rule it out because Cifuentes is such a talent at identifying the strengths of this team and playing to them. Now, I think a lot of the reasoning why they were pretty poor with the first couple of months of the season is because Marty Cifuentes wanted to deploy a little bit more of a progressive style of play. He wanted to play out from the back, and it just wasn't quite working. In addition to not having the right personnel available to play, there are a lot of injuries, etc. They were really struggling. But now there's a little bit more of a drive to sort of play to the strengths of the team, which is, playing it up to Michael Frey at times and playing off him and getting into Elias' chair. There are a lot of clever things about what Cifuentes is doing. So I don't think you can rule it out. Do I think they have the squad depth and squad strength to do it? No. But I think Cifuentes as a manager just really excites me. So if they're going to reach the top 6, I don't think it's because they've got an incredible squad. I think it's because they've got a very, very good manager.
Yeah, as I say, it's still very much a long shot at this stage, but considering their form, I mean, you don't want to rule it out, but you will say it would take a ridiculous, it would be a ridiculous turn of events for them to continue this form that they have shown in recent weeks. I mean, you are right, the personnel issue was something that was holding them back massively, but now that they have got Elias Chair back, they've actually got a fit striker playing again. That's all very handy, and when you've got players,
a fit striker who can score goals.
Yes, that certainly helps as well. Kieran Morgan as well, developing as quickly as he has done. These are all really positive signs. And it looks like QPR are slowly getting tighter at the back. That was something holding the back earlier in the season, which was a surprise considering how tight they were at the back last season under Martí Cifuentes. But it looks like they are getting there as well. So I wouldn't want to rule it out. That's all I'll say on QPR and their venture up to the top 6, because I mean, when the form that I've just mentioned there, it's astounding, and it seems like they're kind of doing a similar thing to what they did last season, Justin, with their ridiculous rise at the table. So, it may continue for the Marty Party for the foreseeable future. And QPR were 15-8 to go down when the season started, Justin, with our friends at SBK, and just before this game, they were now 4-1. So it seems like they are slowly eradicating any fears of them being in any danger of going down and looking more up to, as opposed to looking over their shoulders. Can't say the same about Luton Town, though, can we, Justin? Complete parallel, really. Luton were 28-1 at the start of the season to get relegated. And now, just before this game, they were 7-2 with SBK, which is quite a dramatic fall from grace, isn't it? I mean, I don't think anyone would have predicted anyone would have predicted Luton to be in this sort of position at this stage of the season. But the fact that we're even talking about relegation is just ridiculous, isn't it, Justin? And we're once again sat here saying, how long has Rob Edwards got? How many more losses will it take until it truly does break the camel's back? Because they are just losing home and away now. I mean, they've been losing from away from home now for a ridiculous amount of time, and it just doesn't seem to be getting any better.
I'm just looking at the table now, and just going to reel off names in the bottom half of the table: Millwall, Preston, Coventry, Oxford, Stoke, Hull, Cardiff and Plymouth. They've all changed their managers. I mentioned Stoke twice because they've changed the manager twice. It's just completely bonkers that they've all identified a need to change the managers to fulfill their objectives, whereas Luton are just seemingly happy swimming around the basement of the table, because they are just 2 points above the bottom 3 right now and just 5 points above Plymouth in bottom place. And it's just astonishing that we're still talking about Rob Edwards now as a manager. I know it's quite easy to talk about it, especially immediately post game, as this episode is. But I think Rob Edwards is an incredibly lucky man to still be within his job. And like I said in the first half of the show, I saw some positives for Luton to take out of that game. I didn't see enough. Yes, Morgan Fox scored a very, very fortunate goal, but QPR could have got a couple more in the first half, and they could have got 3 or 4 more in the second half. They had that many chances. They're far too open defensively. They are so disorganised. I mean, that 86th minute fiasco, I think, just completely summarises where Luton are at the moment. And you just look at the amount of goals they've conceded this season. It's ridiculous. I'm just going to double check now. They are literally second to Plymouth in terms of goals conceded. Plymouth are one of the worst defensive teams this division has seen in history. They're so poor this season. And Luton are running them relatively close. They're only 9 goals off them. And it's just ridiculous that this has the potential to keep on going. As I say, after the back of that performance against QPR, I cannot see things turning around. I just can't. It's impossible.
Yeah, well, we've been saying that for ages now, haven't we, Justin? It seems, it just doesn't seem like we're ever. It's getting to the stage now where we've been talking about it for so long that it doesn't seem like it's ever going to happen, and nothing seems to be improving. I mean, one thing I will add to some of the numbers you read out there. You know how we talk most weeks about how shocking Plymouth's away form is. Luton have only got one more point on the road this season than them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just ridiculous, isn't it? It's 9 straight losses on the road now for them. And when you've got form like that, I mean, if it was enough for Wayne Rooney to lose his job, then surely it's getting to the stage where Rob Edwards has got to go as well. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm, campaigning for a manager to lose his job, but it's near impossible at this stage to make an argument for him.
It's untenable. And I think just based on what you said, I firstly apologise to Plymouth fans for week in, week out picking you when you play away from home, picking you in as a team that the banker is going to play against because your away form is that poor. Maybe I should be picking Luton, the opposition, whoever Luton plays, as the banker instead. So apologies to Plymouth fans there for a season-long tirade for that. But can you remember back in, it would have been November, the international break, we discussed managers that are close to losing their jobs. Rob Edwards came up in discussion, Marty Cifuentes came up in discussion. Now look at where both of managers are currently looking. Cifuentes is looking at the top 6. Rob Edwards looking at a League One battle, to avoid League One, sorry. It's just... it's just ridiculous to be in this position right now. It's completely, completely ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I think that example there is perhaps a reason why sometimes clubs should keep faith with their managers, because Marty Cifuentes has just done ridiculously well since then. But I think we all thought he would turn it around eventually. With Luton, it's just like, why are we pursuing with this experiment on the Luton fans to try and test their patience for as much as possible? Because where are the signs that it's going to turn around? As I say, I don't think they played too badly against QPR here, but when they have lost 9 games away from home on the bounce and they're 2 points above the bottom 3, leaking goals for fun, probably should have conceded more against QPR, then it's just an absolute nightmare. And it's one that Luton don't seem to be waking up to, which is a really, really scary position for them to be in. But there we go, ladies and gents. This has been our reaction episode to QPR v Luton Town from Monday night. And we'll next be back on Thursday, but we'll be doing a news roundup of everything across the old Champo. So we look forward to seeing you then for that. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.